6:30, June 10th. Go through the roll call here. So we have myself, we have Councillor Swearingen, Councillor Schulte, Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Moody is absent. We also have a number of guests. We have Patrick Knight, who is the City Communication Director, Mike Roth, City Administrator, Kim Dunsmore, City Finance Director, Chris Hood, City Attorney, and then we have 3 visitors to represent an item on the agenda. We have Jean Spry, and then we've got Eric Humphrey, and we've got Jim Boyd from the chamber. So I hope that all came through. My screen kind of froze up while I was saying that, so hopefully that was all right. All right, so there's our roll call. So open forum. Does anybody have anything that they were sent for open forum? Okay, then we'll close the open forum, and I apologize for that noise in the background. That's the compressor. That will hopefully turn off in a moment. So then we'll move on to the consent agenda. So the consent agenda has 4 items on it right now, including improving this current agenda, the meeting minutes from the previous meeting, payment of bills, and there is a liquor store hire. Mike, do we have a second liquor store hire for that? I know that they said there's one that's pending.
Not that I've heard yet. I don't know.
Okay, so then we have one hire for the liquor store as presented in the packet. I would like to add to the consent agenda. We received a request for a liquor license for the Fisherman's Daughter, which is a business that's going to be in the Dockside Fish Market location. I would recommend we add that to the consent agenda. However, if people didn't have enough time to go through it and would like to deal with it independently, I'm okay with that too. Does anybody have any objections to adding that to the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the addition of approving the liquor license for the Fisherman's Daughter.
Fabulous. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll just go down the list here. For the councilors, Kelly, what's your vote?
Aye.
Craig, your vote? Oh, he's still...
Craig, you're muted.
Are seasonal businesses affected by our liquor licenses?
Yes. They have to get a liquor license just like everybody else.
No, but I mean, we don't have a restriction on how many months they have to be open?
No, there's no restrictions on beer and wine licenses.
Okay. Fine. Aye. I mean, I just wasn't sure about that.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair question.
Okay.
Tim, your vote?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Consent agenda has been approved. So we will move forward with the agenda then. So the first item on the agenda is the Grand Marais Business Coalition request for assistance. So there is in your packet a list of requests from the Grand Marais Business Coalition. There are 4 items on there. I believe the 4th has been removed though, which is the closure of First Avenue. So one of the requests is placement of additional trash receptacles. Another is picnic tables. The third is additional porta potties for the season. And there also was an email that was sent to the council that has a map of some of these amenities with cones marking where they are located, just for the to make it an easier visual to see. So with that said, we have our members of the business coalition that are here to lead us through these. And I don't know how you guys want to do this. If one of you wants to take each one and kind of spearhead the conversation for it. We just want to make sure that we have people speaking, not speaking over each other, and we can understand what the communication is. So I assume that you guys have talked about who's talking about what. So jump in.
I'll jump first.
Okay.
I know Jim's here, and Jim's been very instrumental in keeping us going, and we appreciate him. As you said, we did table number 4 in our last Monday meeting. We've been Zooming every Monday. Basically, we're just asking, as the letter says, so I don't think we need to explain it to you. I think it's more if you have any questions for us. Eric's been instrumental in getting the information about the porta potties, and the rest of it is Jim probably would be able to share information on the trash receptacles. And there's an idea we have with that, and some money available with an idea going with that too. But we just really need some help. As it says, a lot of the businesses that do have bathrooms that are normally available, because of the restrictions and the way this works with COVID and our plans for reopening, that's something that has been taken off the list for the stores that have had a bathroom to offer. So we are seeing that that's an issue. And the trash, because of the to-go, that is going to change a little bit with the places being open, but I still think it would be nice to have a few more. And then the main thing is again, the porta potties. To me, the picnic tables, that's something that we feel is a need too, because of the to-go. There are people that still would like to get food to go and not sit in a restaurant. But I guess that's really it. I guess I look forward to any questions you guys might have, and I'm going to mute.
Well, let's try and take these one at a time as well as we possibly can. So if we start with number 1, that's the trash receptacles. So you're asking for 6 to 8 additional trash receptacles. There likely will be a higher volume of trash around this summer because of the to-go containers. Although once those get back to, or once we get back to inside dining and everything like that, which assuming we'll get there, hopefully that'll go down. But is one of the part of the conversation that you guys have for this number 1, is that having to do with the Creative Economy Collaborative request to paint some like art paint, some trash cans that could then be placed around town, or is that request independent? Ready, go.
I think that's up to you guys, Jay and City Council. I don't see any reason why you have to separate them unless you are in favor of one and against the other for some reason. But one of the possibilities here is that we are given some new cans that have lovely paint jobs, and we put them around town in strategic locations as requested.
Question for the councilors. Did you all see that memo that came from Marais Somnus, or this email that came from Marais Somnus that was talking about painting steel drum trash cans to be put around town?
I saw it, but I wonder, Jean just mentioned that there's an opportunity and some money available. So is that a separate thing, Jean, from the creative economy? Or were you talking about the same language here?
I was hoping Jim Boyd would jump in on here, because him and Mary probably have that more information. But Mary's is, we need more trash cans regardless of whether they're painted or not, is kind of, I'm sure Eric probably agrees with me. We don't care what color they are as long as they're collecting trash and have a lid on them. But that was something that I guess I'm hoping when I mute that Jim, but I guess you can look at it as a separate thing, but it also could be something the money that was available, and Jim can correct me, was more for if we wanted to, if some needed to be painted and wanted to have them a little more appealing. There's some funds for that. So I'm going to step out and hope Jim jumps in.
Jim is muted, and I've been trying to get a hold of him on his cell phone, but he's not picking up. So I'm not sure if he's available right now.
If he's, yeah, okay, I got you.
I think the dollar figure was $1,000, if I recall, that the Cook County Chamber was going to kick in from a funding source. And then Jill from Joy and Company offered use of high-end airbrush and paints, I think at cost or something like that, so that it would be a permanent, not just a temporary solution. So high-quality jobs. So I think it's just there if the city wants to accept it. That's my understanding.
I mean, I don't know what the rest of the counselors think. I think it's a pretty cool idea. I mean, I think it's there's been a problem observed, and that's a solution directly for it, and doing it with a particular flavor instead of just having it be kind of vanilla. But Kelly, you got something to say?
Oh, no, it looks to me like there's, two different ways that this can be funded. So in some way or other, however we decide, we can probably move ahead with something, whatever we decide, I guess. So Tim and Craig probably need to weigh in too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the extra garbage that's coming out of takeout kind of thing, we saw a problem with that already. But the thing we should be careful with is adding more trash cans and somehow monitoring who's putting trash in these trash cans. My trash cans are full constantly, and it's not garbage from people's cars. It's garbage from people's houses.
Right.
And so if we're going to put out more receptacles for a purpose that we see we need it for, it would be nice to make sure that's what it's being used for.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise we're just saying to a lot of people who don't want to have a garbage bill, hey, we're going to take care of you guys. Come and throw your garbage here.
Right.
We do have laws against that, so perhaps maybe we need to enforce them once in a while when we get the opportunity to do it. And, that's my thinking behind it.
Mike?
Just to weigh in, I'm actually not sure we do have laws against that. If we're putting trash cans out in the public and saying people can throw their trash in it, I don't think we have an ordinance that's really explicit that you can't throw your household waste into it.
The county does.
I'm not sure that they do, and even if they do, I mean, you're just basically sharing the same frustration that all my staff has with it. When
Right.
we witness somebody take the lid off a can, throw 3 full bags into it, step on it to get it full, in there, and then put the lid back on. Sometimes, I don't know of an effective way for us to monitor that. We can certainly ask law enforcement to watch for it, but it's much more of that's the easier solution for us than not having the cans there, because the garbage is going to end up somewhere downtown anyway. So having the cans actually just kind of makes our problem easier to solve. But what you're saying, Craig, is exactly what I hear from all of our staff about garbage collection and why it's so frustrating for them.
Perhaps that's part of the strategic nature of the location of the trash cans, so that we can put those in places that they'll be accessible to people who are sitting around and enjoying, the area, but not directly accessible to people who are going to jump out of their car and lug a bag of their own trash and toss them in. I think we can talk probably a little bit more about that later, if that's where we're going to actually put them. And honestly, that's one of the things that I would enjoy some feedback with the from the Downtown Business Coalition or the Grand Marais Business Coalition to weigh in on what locations we'd be talking about with that. Tim, do you have anything to say about this? I just want to make sure that we go around the table before we start playing playing the solution game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I think that there's, a need for more trash receptacles downtown. The one thing I still would like to encourage though are restaurants that have, that we encourage them to also have, trash cans in strategic locations on their property so that people that are taking stuff out or, getting stuff in containers might have an ability to dispose of some of their waste before they leave the property, especially if they're eating outside at a picnic table or somewhere like that. And the idea of working with the collaborative arts group, I think is great. If we can get some decorative cans, that's always nice. I think the priority though is getting the receptacles out there so that the need is handled and we don't end up seeing stuff on the street and litter and other problems becoming a bigger problem. So that's kind of my take on it.
Okay. So then perhaps we could have the like certain businesses could like adopt some of these new cans or something to try and keep an eye on them. That's a possibility. I know that that Blue Water, the Riddles at Blue Water asked for a can or two that they then would manage themselves, just so that they didn't have to provide it themselves. But that kind of a model I think is going to be much better because people are actually going to keep an eye on it a little bit closer. But if we're going to break down number 1 on the request list in the agenda, I think that from hearing what the council has said, I think that it's pretty clear that one's kind of a slam dunk as far as the you guys have said we want more cans, and there's also a proposal to provide more cans that have been painted kind of fun ways. So I mean, it seems like that problem and solution have presented themselves, and I don't hear any reasons why we shouldn't move forward with that. I don't think we need necessarily even a motion from the council to move forward with that. I mean, if we've got the nods going, then I think that means let's do it, and we can figure that out. Yeah, go ahead, Jean. Mute.
Just wanted to. I know we fly so many emails between us with our groups, and I don't know if it was Jim or Linda or Eric or somebody, but just another thing too is, we're lacking our Lions Club recycle bins too.
Oh,
that's right. That I didn't even think about it until I saw it in one of our correspondence. So that's just adds to the trash problem. I just wanted to throw that in there, that we are going to miss that now. They haven't put those out, and I don't know that they are. So just a point. Thank you.
Okay. That's potentially something else we could talk about at a later date too. Jim, I see that you're on now and that you're unmuted. So do you have anything to add? So basically what you've missed is that we've gone through and said, number 1, more trash cans sounds reasonable. The CEC is willing to provide those cans with an artistic flair. And there are some other partnerships, going around for materials and things like that. So I think that one seems pretty solid. I don't know if you have anything else to add for number 1. If you don't, then we'll just move on to number 2 on the list.
I'll only add that we'll get folks working on that. We have the money, and it sounded like Greg Mueller has the barrels. There was a concern about the covering for the barrels. So I don't know if I missed that bit, but do you have those coverings with the flap that we could add to the barrels once they're finished?
That'd be a question for Mike and the streets/maintenance guys. Mike, do you know if we have any additional those lids, or is that something that we would have to find or get?
I don't know. I think we do, but I don't know for sure. We'll have to check.
Okay, well, we'll try to get those barrels painted and to you as soon as we can do that. Thank you. Cool.
Well, that worked out well. All right, so let's move on to number 2. So the number 2 is the picnic table conversation. So I get, totally get the reason for the picnic tables. social distancing, outside seating, all that sort of stuff. I'm curious, as I look at the downtown picture we've got here, that shows where all the picnic tables and porta potties and such are. I see 2, 5, 10 picnic tables in the downtown area. What areas were suggested for placing more picnic tables downtown?
Jane, you want to handle that?
And find that mute button. As I look at this, it's one of those things you see as you go around, and then it really clicks when you see it on a map like this. I think that it would be nice to have some more even if it's just 2 picnic tables in Harbor Park. And Eric, you can jump in on this too, like where you think, because you see more action on your end down there too. I think that it's more by the food places. It needs to be. You've got them out by on the lake, which is beautiful, on the point, but like for that immediate grab a picnic table seating from Blue Water, or as the other places keep opening, it would be nice to have it a little closer. Anybody else want to jump in, Eric?
I just a quick question. Could they go on to private property if the private property owner was agreeable?
I don't see why not, but that might be more of a question for Chris, or for precedent for Mike on that. I don't know. What do you think, Chris or Mike?
I think it depends on where we're talking about, but probably they can.
Well, I was just thinking, there are empty lots around town, and Sid Backlund has his, Bruce Lang has his, Jim Joins has a parking lot. There's the Kennedys have spaces, and I'm not trying to volunteer anybody, but just maybe before we approach someone, we should know if it is feasible.
I would assume it is. Mike, do you know what our supply of picnic tables looks like? Is that just kind of like we got lots and lots? Because I know that a lot of our picnic tables are assigned to, they're assigned to spots in the rec park.
That's most of our supply, yeah. And the rec park is now becoming full for the season, which is good news for them, bad news for picnic table supply. Might be wanted elsewhere. I'm not sure if we have other picnic tables sitting around. We'll have to look. And we put out all the ones that we normally put out and a couple more. So
where does the supply of tables come from for fish pick bingo?
That's a really good question. I don't know. Does Mike, do you know where those picnic tables come from? Those must come from.
They aren't picnic tables at the bingo tent, are they? Aren't they tables and benches or chairs?
I think the Legion owns those.
Yeah, I think so too. Legion.
Okay, so that could be potentially another avenue to explore. I
don't think they're weatherproof. They're like a regular table that you have, inside a building type thing.
It just goes to show I need to spend more time at the bingo tent. We can check though with the Parks Department to see how many picnic tables we have left, or we have available. One of the possibilities might be that picnic tables that would be available could be made available by replacing some of the boards on them. I know that we have a couple of picnic table frames that I've just seen laying there, but the boards have been all rotted off of them, and it hasn't been a priority to spend time or energy to fix them because we don't need them. So that might be something.
Not sure that's how I'd describe it, Jay.
Okay.
We have hundreds of picnic tables, and maintaining them is an annual event.
Well, when I'm saying the ones that have been scrapped are not a priority to get back into working condition. So the proposal would be the question would be, are those available for someone else to repair and try and get back into circulation? So that would be a question for the Parks Department, talking about the supply of picnic tables. And I might be barking up a completely wrong tree here. So those might not even be salvageable. So
I think maybe just putting a few more into Harbor Park to begin with, if there are just a couple lying around, and then, if there are spaces in private property, it'd be a second option.
well,
We can also just redeploy some of the ones that are not close to the restaurants so that they're closer.
okay. Does anybody have any other comments or thoughts on that one?
Isn't this something that we could have checked with Dave or the park on? This was it's on our agenda. Is there a way that we could follow up with him right away tomorrow? I can find out if we have anything. Because I was thinking the same thing. I still think the Harbor Park should have 1 or 2 tables there just permanently. Whether we buy it and leave them there, something that will weather, or whether the campground has them, but maybe we should look at what's available to purchase for just 2 tables to add to Harbor Park.
That's fair. Jean, what do you got?
I think I'm jumping on what Mike said, maybe rearranging some of the current picnic tables that are out there. And if I were to pick, I would pick the 2 picnic tables that are out on the point, on the East Bay side. Maybe they could be, this is just a suggestion. I don't want anybody to freak out on me, but I thought that they're kind of where I've seen them get buried by rocks when the wind picks up, and why not move them in the other side in the Harbor Park where that doesn't happen as bad, and maybe they'd get used more. So that's just a suggestion. It would be a quick fix.
Those things are huge. Like huge concrete picnic tables.
Oh, okay. It wouldn't be a quick fix.
I mean, it could potentially be a quick fix, but I don't know how hard it would be to move those things.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, the idea of having more picnic tables, kind of like the ones that are in the rec park, seems to be a much more fitting concept, because then
Sure.
at least we know we can move them. Yeah. Any counselors? Do you guys have any thoughts on additional picnic tables? Or I know Kelly made a suggestion that maybe it's time to purchase some more. Like actually purchase some for down there in Harbor Park and have that be their permanent location. I don't know if we would have to do anything with the land trust about that. Probably not. But what are we all thinking about this stuff? We got Tim and Craig unmuted. So Tim, why don't you start, and then we'll go to Craig.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting picnic tables around downtown, especially this summer, makes a lot of sense. I think there's places to put picnic tables, whether it's on city-owned land or working with private property owners that have space. I mean, there's some strategically located lots too that potentially could be used if there was the right conversation had with the owners. I mean, I think we should pursue both options and try to get at least more outdoor seating available. I think people will take advantage of it, especially this summer. I think whether and we can see how it works out and whether there's a need for something more permanent in Harbor Park. But I think at least in the short term, getting something in Harbor Park would make a lot of sense for this summer.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Craig, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was thinking also across from Sydney's in that Bay area there. I don't think there's any picnic tables. Is there one in there now or any? That's a pretty popular spot.
Well, if you talk
parking lot, because of the parking lot that's out there, people do bring their lunch out there, and they, that'd be another spot to put a picnic table.
On the lake side of the rock, like kind of nestled in back by the big pine trees, there are 3 of those concrete picnic tables back up in there.
Okay.
That is a really nice spot to sit though. And there's a lot of room there. So that could be a potential location as well for more, social distancing, et cetera. But I would also agree with Jean that, I think maybe the focus should be on getting them into a space where people can see that from the restaurants, kind of funnel
Right.
people into those places. Then we could make sure that there's more, receptacles there, and then we can kind of kill all those birds with as few stones as possible, if you want to use it.
Well, I could tomorrow I could talk to Dave at the park and see what his inventory is on picnic tables. If that would help.
Well, I wouldn't worry about the supply. We'll figure
Okay.
out whether we have some or whether we need to get some. So you just
Okay.
tell me if you want them, where you want them, and we'll make that happen.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for that approach, because even with 50% capacity, these restaurants are going to struggle this summer. So creating these spaces would be very much appreciated.
Yep. And so what we can do is we can weigh in, we can find out what the supply looks like, and then we can weigh back in with the downtown or the Grand Marais Business Coalition to have them, we feel like there's some pretty clear feedback on locations to put them. But if we end up with a supply that would be appropriate for, for putting on private property or something like that, then we can follow up with you guys to arrange, your help in making those asks, because I think that that's pretty important to have the business community drive that request, especially if it's going to private property.
Sounds good.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else to say about picnic tables on this one? Then let's move to the third one. So again, I felt like Jean put together a pretty good summary of the request for more porta potties. They're asking for 4 additional porta potties, largely to meet the needs that are created by the lack of private bathrooms that are going to be open to the public. I know that in my business, the bike shop downtown, I do have a bathroom and I usually let people use it, but I haven't been letting people use it because it's a shared space with the frame shop next door. And I think that we're going to run into a lot of situations like that. Thank you, Eric, for gathering cost estimates for that as well. It says $600 a week for, or does that say, wait, is that what it said? It said $600 per month with weekly cleaning. So that's where I got the week. $800 for twice weekly cleaning. So that's what they're looking for. Currently, we have the I believe we have 11 porta potties out downtown. We have 4 out on the point. We have 4 porta potties in the parking lot across from Sydney's and Red Pine Realty, and then we have 3 in the lot right adjacent to the Blue Water. Am I missing any porta potties downtown? I think that's all of them. The 3 on the map that was given, the 3 that are behind Blue Water are not represented there. And then we of course have the public restrooms on Broadway in the City Hall building. So maybe somebody.
Are the Blue Water the ones there yet? They just get put in today, the Blue Water?
Oh, I thought that they were already there. I thought I saw them. Maybe I was making that up.
We don't generally put porta potties there.
Those are paid for by Blue Water.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I spoke to Pete, the Riddles hadn't approached him yet, and Pete didn't feel comfortable asking him given the situation. So they might not be wanting to fork out that money this year with their revenues down.
Gotcha.
So we're missing those so far.
Okay, so that explains why they weren't on the list then. I could have sworn I saw them, but I'm just seeing things. So then the request is for 4 additional porta potties that would be put somewhere on First Avenue. Is that correct? What exactly is the location we're looking at here?
Well, that was the original thought with the closure, but we have since taken that off the table. So we're kind of up in the air about location, and maybe, you know, in consultation, if the decision is to go forward with it, in consultation with, you know, Pete and you know, city people to come up with a list of some good locations.
Counselors, what do you think about the concept? Let's start with the concept of adding 4 more porta potties. This is, you know, either $600 or $800 a month, and we're talking about doing this for, let's say, 4 months. What are you thinking?
Just one other quick point that I was going to put one on the north side of my building, but Pete said they get hit so hard now in the summer that he's not willing to put just one in a location. He wants a bank of 4 to facilitate. Otherwise, they just get overwhelmed. So that's why it's a 4 unit.
Yeah, that's understandable. Go ahead, Jean.
Thanks, Mayor Jay. 2 things. First, I just want to let you guys know that Jim Boyd put this package together for us. I have to give him credit. We've been so busy and everybody's been working so hard, and he has been busy too. So I just wanted to let you know that this is compiled. We throw everything at him and he puts this together for us. So, and the other thing, let's see, about the potties is just bear in mind that as we've been open now this is our 3rd week, I've sent a ton of people, more than I think ever, to the public bathroom with the seagull looking down, you know. So this is going to put, with the stores that have offered bathrooms that aren't doing it right now, this is going to put a heavy load on that city public bathroom. You know, Bucks has always been good about having one, but with the limiting people and the issues at the door, that's not an easy place to send people. So I would like to just throw that out there to bear that in mind when you're making your decision, that this would be very helpful to all of us in the long run. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Jean. So what do you guys think about it, counselors? What are your comments? Kelly, you were the first one to unmute.
Well, as much as I don't like them, because I find it really ugly to look at porta potties in a downtown area, but we don't have a lot of choices. I'm kind of thinking that obviously it's summer. We have people coming. By July, I think we're going to be busy, probably not as normal. I'm wondering if we don't need to add more than 4, probably have them cleaned twice a week. But I also have a question, because most places are closing their bathrooms to people. We probably need maybe 2 that offer a handicap option as well, which I think PD has, but obviously they're larger, allows for someone to get in and move about and get back out. So I think that's something we have to also consider. But with that, it's going to be more expensive. But I think we're kind of on the hook for what we need to do to get through 2020.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, Kelly. I mean, I do think that, you know, we're going to have some real needs, you know, as a business owner, and talking to other business owners, you know, offering public bathrooms has always been a big deal for those business owners, and this year even more so. You know, with taking care and keeping the cleanliness and safety and health issues in the forefront, and certainly can understand why businesses, you know, are choosing not to offer, you know, public bathroom space. So I think, you know, the city does need to step up. I mean, again, hopefully we can find a strategic location where we can put the porta potties in a location where they're needed, but not so visible that they become a feature of the landscape. You know, and I think working with the business coalition, the chamber, you know, whatever we need to do to work together, I think would be helpful, because we just need to kind of gauge this as time goes on. None of us know what this is going to be in a month or 3 months, and you know, we just need to do what we can to alleviate the problems as they look right now. So that's my take.
Yeah, and I think that we can probably predict a little bit, or we can at least keep an eye on how the cleaning is going. You know, Petey's been pretty good about telling us when the bathrooms have been completely overwhelmed. You know, to just kind of give us a heads up on whether or not we need more bathrooms. I'm sure he'd be willing to do that too. So, yeah, go ahead.
What about putting them kind of out of sight, but in realm to the other public bathroom in our city parking lot right now on the back side near the alley? Is there a fence there? I know Sven and Oli, some of their people maybe used to park there. I think currently they're more behind their building. It would take up probably 3 or 4 parking spaces there, but you know, it's kind of out of sight. It's not right out visible, but it's very easy for people to direct them to the public restrooms and say, or there are 4, 6, 10 porta potties there that are also available for use.
That way we'd be kind of consolidating them. The people who are looking for a bathroom are gonna, you know, they're gonna find one. So if we want to, I mean, that's a good possibility. I don't know what the answer is for that one, but that's it.
And there is kind of a lack of, you know, any kind of public restrooms going west of First Avenue West, you know, going past the Gunflint Tavern over towards Java Moose, and you have the Dairy Queen, and so you have other businesses over there. Maybe there's a need to put some over in that direction too, to you know, pick up in an area where there aren't any.
Like someplace behind like the Johnson Heritage Post or something like that, so they'd be out of the way. Oh, you're muted, Tim.
Sure, and maybe even working with Johnson Heritage Post or Harbor Inn, space back up behind their parking lot.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too.
Could I jump in very quickly?
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Patrick had a conversation that I was privy to earlier today with Greg Wright, who was expressing a concern about even further west than Johnson Heritage Post or Java Moose. Maybe Patrick could tell you about that.
Well, Greg was just wondering about the people who kind of walk along the rec park area, if there was going to be bathrooms accessible for them, and the rec park bathrooms are open on Monday. So.
You can go ahead and call their helpline and leave a message.
Yeah, you can hear the radio. That's funny.
Yep, I'm going to have to mute Patrick there. Sorry, we don't need everybody listening to that, unfortunately. Yeah, what Patrick was, I just want to paraphrase a little bit. I don't think Greg was expressing a concern as much as he was asking a question. And the question was, are the rec park restrooms open to the public? And the answer is yes.
Okay, so that hopefully is handled then by, you know, or that'll handle that side of the, that side of town, at least minimally. Craig, you haven't weighed in yet on the porta potty situation. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's good to also to remember those of us that have bathrooms that are open, we get hit extra heavy, you know, especially I know my place does.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So when you're down, when you guys aren't going to have your bathrooms open in your businesses, I think we're going to have to do something about that. And this is a good idea, I think, to strategically put these somewhere where people can find them, and, you know, I think it helps, takes the pressure off of other businesses that are, especially I can, you know, I used to own the Dairy Queen. I know what that's like. That's just a revolving door for everybody because it's easy, it's quick. And, you know, anybody else with a gas station, of course, I'm kind of off to the side, but I know Holiday's kind of right in the middle of a lot of traffic there. So, I mean, walking traffic.
Right.
So if other businesses close off their bathrooms, I think this is a good idea to do. Just finding a good spot or maybe a couple good spots. Looking at where the traffic moves and walks is where we gotta locate these. I think it's a good idea. Kelly brought up in the parking lot, that back corner, there's a dead birch tree there. Is that what you're thinking? Yeah, we could put it in that corner. Because a lot of times I drive through there and I see people waiting to get in that public restroom a lot of times. So maybe they'll take the pressure off of the line. People go there, but sometimes it's really busy. So that's a good location, I think, for some bathroom, for some satellites.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, Gene, let me just summarize something first before you jump in. So pretty much all the counselors have said, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. We need to figure out where to put them. I do think that the where to put them is something that, we have a couple of really good suggestions. We've got, a suggestion of using a space on 2nd Avenue West, something, like trying to find a space somewhere in the neighborhood of the Johnson Heritage Post, just so that we can service that part. We've got the idea of supplementing the public restrooms at the City Hall building with those porta potties as well. So those seem like two pretty sensible suggestions. I think that at this point we're going to be getting more porta potties. We just need to figure out where we want to put them. And is that what your comment was on, Gene? Just wanted to make sure that we summarize.
I just wanted to throw that if the Johnson Heritage, yes, I'm agreeing with you, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing. If the Johnson Heritage Post isn't, we're talking about aesthetics here, and like Kelly said, last thing you want to see is a porta potty unless you really need it. I know that at the Gunflint Tavern, and Tim, you can correct me too, behind your Birch Bark is a city alley that gets used as a parking lot. That would be tucked away, but not as visible. That's another suggestion. That's all I wanted to throw out there, because I think that is a nice area right in there. But just a thought too on where it could go.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. So how do we want to proceed with the location finding here? I mean, we could also ask Petey and have Petey give us some feedback too, because like you mentioned, Eric, he's not interested in putting one out there. He knows where things are going to get hammered too, so he could potentially help us get some information on where to put them. If the representatives from the downtown or the Grand Marais Business Coalition and the counselors feel comfortable with that, we could just contact him about getting the new porta potties, ask his opinion, and then bounce those ideas off a couple of people, find a spot that's going to be easy for him to service, easy for people to find, and effective, and then and not like front and center in prime real estate, and then just make it happen. Does that sound like something that we could all get behind? Or we can also talk about these locations a little bit more in depth to make sure that we're understanding the where these right places would be. But what are we thinking?
Jay, one other spot that we might mention to him and see is somewhere behind Bill Bawley's to the Old Century warehouse, or even that parking lot across the dirt parking lot across from Best Western, where all the snowmobilers typically park in the winter. Because a lot of people walk from the motels over into town that direction. So if we had one or two somewhere over there as well, that may be an option to put before Petey as well. Maybe the more we get, the bigger a discount we could get. Huh?
I don't know if that's how it works, but maybe. All right. So that's a bunch of good suggestions. Mike, do you feel like you would be in a position to engage in these conversations to make this happen? Or do you need more information to be able to move on this?
I would like to clarify the budget a little bit. So if we end up with, and keep in mind, Pete's saying he only puts them in groups of 4. So if we pick 3 locations where we're going to add 4 porta potties and they cost $800 a month each, then we're talking about $2,400 a month for 4 months, or about $10,000. So if that number is comfortable for people, then yes, I know everything I need to know, and I'm comfortable working with the business coalition to make it happen.
I would think that we don't need to put them in all 3 locations. I think that we should, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading the council wrong, but I feel like if we get a bank of 4 of them and start with that, and then PD tells us that they're just getting destroyed, then we can add some more to it. That seems to be the way to go, other than like, instead of tossing 12 more porta potties out there and seeing what happens. So is that what you guys are saying, or am I reading it wrong?
I'm wondering if Mike can't get pricing from PD. I'm wondering if we have to have a bank of 4 for each spot, or if he meant to Eric that rather than 1, he'd rather put 4. And what if we got 4 in one spot at City Hall, 2 for the west side of town, 2 for the east side? If Mike could get that clarified with PD, we have our emergency meeting next Wednesday night, then we could make a decision on how to move forward with it.
I also think that on the pricing, Mike, that it's per potty, not per bank. So that if you had 12, it would be 12 times $800, which is a bit more than 6,000, like 3 times as much.
Does that seem right, Mike?
No, your memo, Jim, says charge for a bank of 4 runs $600 per month with weekly cleaning, $800 for twice weekly.
Eric, is Eric still here?
Yes, I think I think Mike has it correct. Pete quoted me
That's the way it is.
150
Okay.
per potty, so 600 for 4.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Too many
Important
things going on.
clarification to make, though, because that would be quite the surprise to have that be the cost that we were talking about. Yeah, Kelly's reaction to that was about right. Like, what? So are we talking? Yeah, right. So council, give me some head nods. Are we talking about 1 bank of 4? Are we talking about 2 banks of 4? Or what are we exactly talking about here?
Well, I think Kelly's suggestion is we should run that by PD. If we could do a bank of 4 in like a high traffic area that we know we probably need them, maybe he'll do 2 in another location and 2, in 2 other lesser traveled areas. So if we did 2 banks, 8 porta potties, maybe he'll split that 4 into 2 spots if they're not highly, traveled areas. That might be a way to start out with this anyway and see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the idea of starting out and just seeing how it goes is the right strategy rather than waiting until next week to ask you to make a decision. I think we can probably get going on this and know that we're still in early June and that it's going to get busier. So if we don't put them all out now, maybe we find we don't ever need to, and maybe we have to put them all out in 2 weeks. But we'll be able to talk to Pete and gather some more information before your next council meeting.
Are
Tim,
you
do you have
saying,
something? Go ahead.
I would agree that I think we need to get going and not wait for another week, because there's growing numbers of people, and it's just going to get more people as we go on. And if we can figure out a way to put 4 in one location and 2 in another location, and that works for PD and works within our budget, I think we should try to get them in again strategic locations where they are going to serve the needs. And just having 4 in a location just because PD likes to have 4 in a group doesn't necessarily mean we need 4 in a location. So, but we might need 2. So that's it'd be good to talk to PD and find out if we can do that.
Okay, so I agree with that. So Mike, that sounds like you've got marching orders on that one then. So, and Kelly, I'm super jealous of your cat right now. It's one of the joys of having meetings from home.
Can we see if we can get in a bank at least one handicapped one, please,
Right.
Mike? Because that's going to be necessary.
I
Yep.
agree.
I'll make
I
sure
very
we get that covered.
Thank you.
Very cool. So I believe those are the three requests that we've got. So we'll be probably continuing to be in touch with you guys, with the Grand Marais Business Coalition, to make sure that we're all barking up the right trees. But I think that we've got a pretty good understanding of what you're asking and how we can meet you with those requests. So
Thank you so much for the reception you've provided for these. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Gene, Eric, Jim. Really, I mean, without your input, this would have been a hard discussion for the council, but having the work you did up front really makes a difference.
I just want to say thank you too. We really do appreciate that you listen to us, and we really appreciate that you're helping us. That's huge. Thank you so much.
no problem.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, guys. So you guys can drop out if you want, and then we'll.
I'll take you guys out of the meeting now, but you can watch on the city website if you're still. Okay.
Thank you. All right. So fabulous. Appreciate that, guys. Great conversation. So now we're going to move on to the next thing on the agenda. This is a limited use permit for the Highway 61 project. So this is under resolution 2020-04. But basically, and I will summarize, and then I will turn it over to get a more complete summary from the legal team here. So Mike and I went down to Duluth. We talked to the folks down there. This was last winter. We went down there, and this limited use permit that we need to get basically allows us to have some of our amenities in the right of way for construction and beyond. So that's what this is asking for. The limited use permit is basically asking MnDOT for permission to have our amenities located in the right of way. And there are certain things like the benches, et cetera, that are listed on there very specifically. And we can amend this, but it's one of those things that we need to. Oh, you can't? Do we have to completely get it rewritten? I thought we could add things to it. Maybe I misunderstood.
If you mean we can put more things into the right of way, we probably can, but I think it's a very similar process to the one we're using now. But if you mean we can change any of the words in any of the documents, then we probably can't.
No, not this one. I'm saying that if we wanted to add more things, we can ask for more things to be added to this permit. But this permit, the way the language is written, it's like, this is one of those things that we have to do to be able to have our amenities in the right of way. So hopefully you had a chance to look through it. It basically summarizes all of the amenities that were part of the plan that are in the right of way and that are not considered part of MnDOT's project. So yeah, so there's a number of pages to this, but it is resolution 2020-04. So I would either open it up for discussion, or if there isn't any discussion, a motion to approve this resolution. So
I have a couple questions, and maybe this is where Chris can answer some of that concerns that I have. I mean, when we started this process, I thought we were in an arrangement of a partnership with MnDOT in terms of how we were structuring use of amenities that we thought important for pedestrian and other travel within the right of way that wasn't on the highway itself. It seems like all the terms of this permit are in the favor of the state, and most of the requirements are on the city. Is there anything that can be done to kind of soften some of those requirements? I mean, not that I think that it's necessarily bad, but I'm concerned that something happened 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, and MnDOT has the power to tell us not to do what we've done. And I'm just feeling a little uncomfortable about the heavy-handedness, or the feeling of heavy-handedness by the state. And Chris, maybe you can respond to that. And
Well, I think, Tim, you're right on with it. The issue is whether or not we have any ability to change any of that language, and the answer is most likely no. And I speak from past experience in trying to the state's agreement, and they typically do not. I mean, they're willing to alter, minor or technical issues. They're willing to make changes, to specific items that you may want to get into the right of way. But in terms of the structure of their agreement and what they've provided you, that's basically a typical format. So you're not really in any better or worse position than anyone else or any other city that seeks to put something in MnDOT's right of way. The reality is they hold the cards, and they're not going to give up any of their legal rights related to the use of their right of way. And so that's what you see in this language.
So your experience working with other communities, have you seen any situations where the community is really, suffered because of the agreement?
I haven't personally seen that. I don't know that my experience is necessarily, broad based enough that there aren't examples of that, but I'm not aware of specific examples where, a limited use permit. I mean, MnDOT has generally, from what I can tell, or at least my experience, has been generally amenable to allowing uses of the right of way that don't otherwise interfere with their primary use as a highway, but subject to a limited use permit. They want to have a limited use permit, just like we would require a license agreement for the use of our right of way and have. They're basically doing the same thing that we do. Theirs is a little more heavy-handed than ours. But ours is fairly one-sided in favor of the city too.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I appreciate that explanation. I just, I was a little taken back at really the tone of the agreement, and feeling, yeah, we weren't being considered as equal partners, or even close to equal partners in this.
Well,
No, it's a very much natural reaction, Tim, that you had. Yes, and I think everybody has it.
yeah, I think it's pretty fair to say that the contract or the permit is not written to be an equal partner kind of relationship. So, yeah, thanks for that clarification, Chris.
Yeah, and really what I'm thinking is that, we're trying to advocate for things that we thought were important in the right of way, namely that pedestrian access from one end of the downtown to the other in a corridor where pedestrians haven't been able to walk very, very freely or comfortably or safely. And now we're going to be the ones that are being kind of in charge of taking care of that portion of the corridor.
I don't think that's either entirely true, Tim. The sidewalks and trails are not listed in the limited use permit. When they go through their list of all the things that they're talking about, it's planters, bollards, railings, fences, tree grates, brick pavers, landscaping, bike racks, waste receptacles, flagpole bases, steps, benches, tables, retaining walls. It doesn't say sidewalks. And I was concerned about that as well, because during the design process, there was some posturing by some of the design team at MnDOT that sidewalks are not terribly important to them, or that it's not one of the main functions of the right of way. But they don't. That's not where we landed here. And MnDOT, with this limited use permit, is not forcing us to take full responsibility of those. Now, they have, in other cases, told us they don't intend to maintain them by plowing snow or other things, and that if we want that done, we're going to have to do it. But this limited use permit isn't covering the pedestrian facilities, so I'm pleased about that.
Okay, well, maybe I misunderstood that. I mean, it was a pretty lengthy contract, and I was looking at it on my phone, so it was like my eyes were going a little buggy after a while. But you know, maybe that's a little bit of help to understand that it's not everything that we're going to be doing within that right of way. It's only those features that we're installing. So okay,
Yep,
I mean,
that is correct. Yep.
that softens that a little bit. You know, I still think it's heavy-handed on the state's part, and I would like to feel like more of a partner with MnDOT rather than just being subject to their limited use permit.
I think that there's a lot of things that we would rather be different in how this has been going. We're taking notes. Let's just put it that way. Any other thoughts on the resolution? Go ahead.
I mean, you called. Never mind. I'll let Craig go ahead, Greg.
Oh, I have a question under Mike touched on it a little bit under maintenance.
That's Kelly's thing too. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so I mean, if this is the draft, I mean, it does say the permittee at our cost and expense, including but not limited to plowing and removal of snow and installation removal of regulatory signs, things like that. I mean, for 25 years, I've cut the grass in front of my store to make it look nice. And I know that a lot of it is state right away. Who's going to maintain that going forward? Is the state going to come in and cut grass in Grammar? I've never seen the state do that, ever. Is the city going to cut the grass along the state right away? We're going to ask businesses to do it. Some of us do it because we just want our places to look nice. But under this draft, it's kind of looking like they're telling the city we're going to be responsible for certain things that are in that state right away. That's my question. Snow removal is one of them. Just basic maintenance is another. Does the state care what the right of way looks like? I don't know. I care, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean they're gonna.
Mike and Chris, anybody want to weigh in on that a little bit?
You're going to be responsible for the things that you put in the right of way. So the limited use permit covers the things that are subject to the limited use permit. So you're responsible for the maintenance of those things. In terms of other locations in the right of way, I don't know how the state views, private property that abuts the right of way, and those, that kind of subject. I don't know how they view that.
You can see in practice how they view it. I mean, you summed it up pretty nicely that some people mow the grass next to their place and the city mows some grass next to the highway, but MnDOT doesn't, and they're not going to. And they've been pretty consistent about that from the get-go. They're not going to plow snow from any sidewalks. They've been consistent about that too. Neither of those are affected at all by this limited use permit, but they still remain the case. And MnDOT's practice in the past 10 years has been, well, and probably longer than that, has been really to focus on the driving lanes. And as you get further from the driving lanes, they're less interested as they're prioritizing their maintenance efforts there.
I think that, and it doesn't change this limited use permit, but just something to be aware of and for all of us to think about come fall when we start talking, well, in 2 months, when we start talking budgets in August, we are going to have a whole lot more stuff to take care of. And I think if we're going to do that after we've spent all this money and do it properly, I still think we need to think about changing our budget and hiring. And I think that has to be in the back of our minds. So I just want to throw that out there. Again, it doesn't affect this limited use, but the limited use tells us we're on the hook for it. And I think we have to just kind of remember that and put that in the back of our minds right now for 2 months.
I think that's a fair reminder. And I do think that's going to be something that we'll just have to continue to monitor, continue to plan for. So does anybody have any more questions about the resolution, about resolution 2020-4, that one? If not, then we can either, this is one of those weird situations where, you know, we can talk about it to understand it better, but really the final action is that, you know, we're being asked by MnDOT to approve this, or to, you know, pass a resolution in support of this, so that we can have the things that we've asked for. If there's more discussion, I'd be glad to have it. If there isn't, I would entertain a motion to approve resolution 2020-4.
I will make the motion that we approve resolution 2020-4.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second for the resolution. Any further discussion? I will, of course, reiterate the note that I've picked up from my fellow counselors, that like the process that this takes to make sure that, or, you know, to get done is sure would be nice if it was a little bit different and a little bit more favorable to the city. But that's making that more as a mental note than anything else. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll go to the roll call vote. Kelly, your vote?
Aye.
Craig, your vote?
Aye.
Tim, your vote?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. They say the ayes have it. Resolution 2020-04 passes. And then we will move on to council and staff updates. We will do this going in the same order that we did our voting in, just because that's easiest for me to do. So we'll start with Kelly. So do you have any updates, Kelly?
I don't have updates, just a couple quick questions. Wondering, I know that Patrick sent out the message about 4th Avenue West on Friday in our weekly update.
Mm-hmm.
Wondering what happened yesterday with the accident at the intersection and people being rerouted and moved around. I think, again, it presents a need for us to at least gravel those potholes yet, which is what we had agreed we would do. And I'm wondering if we can do that. I'm also got a question about if the liquor store got its second line put in.
They did yesterday, yeah.
Wonderful. And also wondering if we could maybe meet in chamber at our next meeting somehow and start to move forward with that and meet in person.
That was okay. Great. Let's do those one at a time. So Patrick, have you heard anything back from the highway engineers, county highway department about potential KGM partnerships for paving fills, or is that just you know, how should we move forward with that? Because the memo said that was a possibility, so we're going to hold off on temporary gravel fills until we know what's happening with that.
I haven't heard anything. Have you, Mike?
No, we don't have an answer back. That and it would be nice if you would clarify that for me. I don't remember that you did direct us to put gravel in the potholes. What I thought you said was to do something more substantial than that. So that's the direction that we moved, was to try and find something slightly more permanent than gravel.
Gotcha.
At the same time, our staff said that if we were to fill it with gravel, it would make that more difficult to do a more substantial repair, because all the work that they did would have to be redone. We still can, though. So if that's what you want us to do, we'll get that done right away. And I'm still expecting it'll be a couple of weeks before we know anything about a more permanent solution. And On that note, the county engineer and administrator are working on trying to gather some information. As you know, there's been a lot of turnover in both their highway department and in administration in the county. And so they are now making efforts to get up to speed so that they can engage with us in this conversation, which I very much appreciate. But that's not going to fix the road right away. So if you want us to put gravel in, say the word, we'll do it.
I thought that was our motion and in the minutes, but I'd have to go back and look.
I'm recalling more so the conversation about doing cold patch, or like filling them with some kind of a cold patch. I'm recalling that now. I think that for me the key is that we got to do something. You know, I mean, I did the Ruby's Pantry thing yesterday, and because we were all moving about, you know, half a mile an hour, it really wasn't a deal. But you know, swinging wide around that big pothole is it's a really big pothole. So I guess I would be in favor of doing something rather than not doing anything. So going and throwing gravel in it, that gravel might last for a couple weeks, and then by the time we're ready with a more permanent solution, it'll be ready for another patch, you know, a different solution. So I don't know what the rest of the council thinks about that, but I think that that's kind of a, you know, literally quick and dirty way of just getting things kind of to a level of not super dangerous.
Yeah, and our motion was back then was to just get in contact with the county to reestablish communication about needing to make some improvements, whether they're short term or longer term. And, you know, obviously that's happening, but if it's going to be a while before we can have any more permanent solution, maybe we do need to go to the short term patching the pot, or just putting some gravel in those holes, because, you know, I mean, there's people using the ball fields, you know, the recycling center back door, you know, and then Ruby's Pantry, use of that road once a month is, you know, a lot of cars, you know, I mean, yeah, and there were a lot of cars yesterday just because of the accident. So, yeah.
So should we do gravel then? We got, just for the time being, not of heads.
I think it would be great. I know that government moves slow, but sometimes I think we just kind of have to bite into something a little bit and get it done. And
Well, that's something that we can do. You know, I mean, in defense of Mike and the other folks, I do think that we did say pretty clearly that we wanted to get more of a permanent solution established. But, you know, if this is going to take, you know, several weeks to get something figured out, I do think in the meantime, putting some gravel in those holes is not a bad idea, just to kind of make it a passable situation until we get to that point. So, anybody else have any thoughts on that? If we're in general agreement, then we'll just kind of move with that then. All right, Kelly, do you have anything else? Did we address all of your things?
meeting in chamber next time. I don't know if people are comfortable with it or not.
Well, on the topic of meetings, Mike and I, when we met to prepare for this meeting, we were talking about next week, and we realized that we really don't have much going on next week. We won't have much for an update as far as projects, and that's one of our emergency meetings. So the idea was to not meet next week, if everybody's okay with that, and then we could go back to a more regular schedule of meetings, and then we would talk about potentially going back to our meeting in person. The challenge with the meeting in person right now is that we still have to be 6 feet apart, and so the way that the council chambers is set up, that can be kind of challenging. As far as having public in there, that would mean that we could probably only have about 5 or 6 people in the chambers, you know, in total, in addition to us. So that's something to consider as well, is that that we would have a significant limit on access to, for public comment and things like that. We would still be videotaping, but that also issues another concern that if we're all spread out all over the council chambers, it's going to be hard for Patrick to swing the camera around to look at all of us, and then we're basically doing the same thing like we would be doing if we were on Zoom. So we need to think about that, I think, as a council. Honestly, I don't care. Like I would be fine either way. I think that we've adapted pretty well to the Zoom calls, but it would be nice to get back to something more normal. So I guess I don't really care either way. If any of you other guys have thoughts about it, we can shoot from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, this has worked well. I mean, I do think at some point we do need to get back to business with the public being able to be present, and they can certainly view the Zoom meeting, but it's not the same as being able to be actively seeing what's going on at a meeting. Yeah, I think if we could social distance, I could go back to having a live meeting, but I don't want to necessarily rush it either. So,
right. So I guess Kelly will probably just continue that conversation.
That's fine. I did have I had a question as to if we would be opening City Hall anytime soon, even with some stipulations in place, since we have other businesses that are opening in town, whether that would be happening in City Hall or not. And I didn't know, Mike, what our plans were for that. We really haven't talked about it at all.
No, we haven't been working very hard on trying to open because we haven't seen a drop in our ability to provide services. But now that other places are starting to open, we have started to talk about it internally and at the staff level here to figure out what would we do, and we think we've got an idea of how to get it done and open the door and kind of limit some access to some of the spaces that are in here. And I'm not sure whether it does anything more than act in solidarity with some other groups that are doing that, but that might be an important enough reason to push ahead on it. So we'll keep developing our plans to get the door open again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else, Kelly? I'm assuming that's it. All right, Craig, you're up. Any updates?
I think we were all together after the park board meeting we had, right? So
Yep.
You guys are aware park is open. Looks like it's getting busier down there. Did you get Dave had sent out a little blip about greeting the seasonal guests that come into the rec park and some of the just information that he put out that was in an email that was sent out? That was kind of a good thing.
I don't know if that got forwarded to the council, but if people want to see that, we can track it down and send it around.
Okay.
I believe I saw it, but that might have been, I might have also been bugging him about that. So
Yeah. Well, it's just a little informative thing when people check in a little bit about what's going on in the park and a little bit about downtown businesses, what's going on with the businesses, and just kind of what we expect, just some general things. It's a good idea, a good thing. I think Dave did a good job putting that together. Other than that, the only other thing I have to say is I am getting some feedback. People are asking about maybe longer hours at the liquor store. Is the liquor store ever going to open for people to come in? I get those types of questions all the time because I think people are aware of what other liquor stores are doing. And so they're just kind of asking me what we're doing. I guess we got more phone lines in there now. So I mean, maybe that's probably helping out a little bit. But I think the biggest problem was just people getting frustrated about getting things. So
Mm-hmm.
that's about all I have with the liquor store. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Everything's fine.
Okay. Thanks, Craig.
Yep.
Tim?
Yeah, a couple things. Well, Kelly, it's not just the city and government that moves slow. Insurance companies move slow too. And I did hear this last week though that the fire investigators have been on site. I was down there with them, and they've passed off the site and said it's able to be cleaned up, only to find out that the insurance companies hadn't yet decided on the proportional split of the costs of the demolition cleanup. And so that took a few more days to get that resolved, and that's all taken care of. So now we're really just waiting on the contractor. Thorson's has the contract to do the cleanup. They've got to get it on their schedule. And of course, getting it set back this late, they're already fully engaged in the work that they're doing. So getting on their schedule, I'm waiting to hear back from them. Hopefully it'll be sooner than later, but it will be when it done hopefully in the next couple of weeks. It'll be restored to a Class 5 gravel parking lot, and at that point, that's kind of why I made those comments that maybe there's some opportunity to work with some of those business owners. Those sites are going to be vacant. They're going to be just a bare lot, so maybe Svenoli's could get some picnic tables out. If they talk to their neighbors nice or do that, there might be some possibilities there. The other thing that we had talked about at our last city council meeting was the downsizing of the liquor store city hall, and I'm wondering if there's been any follow up at all with LHB in terms of trying to come up with some more concrete plan for doing that.
I don't know that I would say a more concrete plan. What we agreed with them and with McGough was that LHB needed to at least get a concept that they felt was achievable in terms of a size. They are close to having an idea for us there. So I'm hoping maybe even that this week's update will be able to send out some more information about that. And then we can put that on the next council meeting to talk about.
Okay, good.
Sounds good.
Also, the planning commission met, I think that was after our last council meeting, so hard to remember when we meet every week.
I think it was right before.
Was it right before? Well, at any rate, the planning commission made the final changes to the draft zoning ordinance that we're now trying to work with Patrick and Mike about setting up kind of a community process to evaluate and get public response, which is obviously challenging in the best of times, but even more so now that people are isolating and we're not having public meetings, and we've got to figure out some creative ways to get people involved. So hopefully we can come up with some ideas with regard to gathering community input on the changes we're proposing as part of the draft. Let's see what else. Just a question. The Legion or Grand Marais has tables out on the sidewalk. I saw that they had some out on the street last week. It all seemed to look like it was working well for them. I also noticed that Hungry Hippie had, put tables and some planters out on the sidewalk too, just to make sure, are they all with proper permits and everything? Is there a way for us to actually know who has a permit, and, so we don't have to have questions whether or not somebody has taken out a permit to use the sidewalk?
we're not requiring permits for the use of the sidewalk. So first, that clarification, and any business has the ability to use that space by just notifying us that they're doing it.
Okay.
The Hungry Hippie's not using a city right of way with what they're doing, so they haven't notified us. No.
How about those planters that are kind of, to me, look like they're out on the right of way?
That if they are, it's the state's right of way and not the city's, and we really don't have an ability to give them permission to use it.
Okay, well, I guess if it's the state, it looked like it was in the same area that we just talked about with Holiday in terms of Holiday having issues with the right of way. And that's all I have. So.
Okay. You guys covered pretty much all the stuff that that I was going to bring up. The only other item that I had is the biweekly emergency preparedness meeting. They discussed the continued preparation for COVID-19, which I guess is it's good because while our meeting is going on, I received a message that said that the first confirmed case in Cook County has been confirmed. So that's happening. The other conversation was about the dog park. We're not really doing much right now to follow up on concepts about what's happening with the dog park. But that's something that we probably at some point should sit down and at least have another conversation about. I can take that one on mostly, talk to Pat and see where we're at with that and just try and make sure that the conversation continues to happen. That probably doesn't need a lot of council movement on that. We just need to figure out how that's going to look and who's going to be a partner in it, and make sure that all of those entities are able to work together, which is something that I can manage. It's not rocket science right now. But that's pretty much all that I have. Do we have anything from administration?
No, nothing else.
Okay. Yep, we are. Oh, go ahead.
One quick thing, Jay.
Yeah.
I got a text from Jean. Just so Mike knows, Melody Riddle just texted her right when we got done with them, said they are willing to put porta potties on their property. They just can't pay for them this year. So that is an option. Just so we're aware.
Good to know. Good to know. Seeing no other business on our agenda, then we are adjourned. We're not meeting next week. Not meeting next week. Okay.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.